Blackstone Audio and Buck 50 Productions present From Harlem with Love by Quan. This book is read by IiKane. Prologue. Blake snapped back to consciousness like a drowning man taking in his first sips of air. Through his left eye, which was the only one that wasn't swollen, he scanned the room, trying to make heads or tails of where he was. From the silhouettes of the cars he was able to pick out in under the few strips of moonlight that shone in the place, he knew he was in a garage. But where in the world was anyone's guess? When the fog finally rolled from Blake's mind and he was fully alert, he immediately wished he was unconscious again, so he could escape the pain that rocked every inch of his body. Blake flexed his aching jaw and could feel the dried blood around his mouth from his broken nose being left to bleed unchecked for only God knew how long. When tried to lift his hand to assess the damage and notice the plastic restraints that bound him by the wrist to the metal chair he was sitting in, suddenly everything that happened came back to him, and Blake's heart was gripped with terror. "That nigga sure looks scared," he heard a familiar voice in the darkness. "Yeah, he sure does," a deep voice snickered. "You scared, homie?" A third and slightly higher voice chimed in. "Who's there?" Blake called out. It was too dark for him to see, but he could make out 3 silhouettes in the shadows. Suddenly, the light above the chair flickered to life and temporarily blinded Blake. When his vision cleared, he found himself staring at 3 familiar faces. The first was the youngest, and from the look in his eyes, the most hostile of the 3. He wrung his hands around the grip of the small machine gun he was carrying, staring murderously at Blake. The second man was chubby, wearing his hair in a short natural that was almost perfectly round. Blake could see the anger in his face, but there was a kindness to his eyes that said he would be the one that Blake would have to appeal for his life. The third man's eyes held no such hope. They were cunning and as dark as the night, blending almost perfectly into his cocoa face. The slender man leaned casually against the television that was mounted on a rolling stand. His expression was a cold one that Blake knew all too well, as he was the one who had helped him perfect it. When he looked into the eyes of his captors, he no longer saw the bright young eyes that looked to him for guidance, but the eyes of wolves about to pounce on an injured animal. "Harlem, you got some big balls for trying to pull this off. Real big balls," Blake addressed the dark-skinned youth through chapped and swollen lips. Harlem looked at Blake with a playful smirk on his face. "Blake, you..."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?